You know that feeling, right? That spark, that instant click you feel with someone, it honestly feels like some kind of magic. But what if I told you it's not magic at all? What if it's more like a code, a biological program that our brains have been fine-tuning for thousands and thousands of years? Today, we're going to decode the science of desire and libido. Let's jump in.
We've all heard that classic line, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But is it really that simple? Is what we find beautiful totally random and personal? Or is there some kind of universal biological blueprint for attraction that we all share? That's the massive question we're diving into.
All right, so let's start with the mental shortcuts our brains use. The second we see a new person, our brain makes a judgment. We're talking fractions of a second. This isn't something you think about. It's like an ancient piece of software running deep in the background.
And one of the biggest shortcuts is something called the halo effect. It's this powerful and kind of weird cognitive bias where we just automatically assume that attractive people are also smarter, more honest, and just better people overall. And the crazy part? It all happens subconsciously, shaping our entire first impression before anyone even says hello. And here's why that happens. From an evolutionary point of view, physical attractiveness isn't random at all. It's actually a collection of signals, like a biological advertisement. And what's it advertising? Good health, fertility, and strong genes. You know, all the stuff that's absolutely essential for the survival of a species. Okay, so let's talk about the body itself. Because the human form, especially the female form, has evolved to be this incredible living billboard for all those reproductive signals.
Features like breasts, buttocks, hips, and thighs, scientists call them sexual ornaments. But what's really fascinating is that in humans, these signals are permanent. Unlike many other primates who only show physical signs of fertility when they're actually ovulating, human female ornaments are always there. And the leading theory for why? It's to encourage long-term pair bonding.
For a really long time, scientists were hunting for the one single universal key to female attractiveness. They were convinced they could boil it all down to one specific mathematical measurement. And they thought they'd found it. It was called the waist-to-hip ratio, or WHR. The idea was simple. A low ratio, meaning a narrow waist compared to wider hips, was the ultimate visual cue. It screamed youth, health, and peak fertility. For years, this was treated as the absolute gold standard. But of course, science keeps moving, and this is where it gets really interesting. It turns out, while WHR definitely plays a role, more recent research shows that body mass index, or BMI, is actually a much more powerful predictor of attractiveness. And why is that? Well, because BMI is just a better overall indicator of a person's health, energy reserves, and reproductive potential. But hey, attraction isn't just about body shape, right? Of course not. Our brains are processing a whole host of other signals at the same time, and a huge number of them come from the face. The amazing thing is that no matter where you go in the world, some of these preferences are remarkably consistent. You can see here that symmetry is a huge one for everybody. It's a really strong, unconscious signal of good, healthy development. For women, our brains tend to look for cues of youth and estrogen, like full lips. For men, it's often signals of testosterone and strength, like that classic V-shaped torso. And if you ever doubted just how deep this connection between looks and pure biology goes, get this. A scientific study actually found a direct correlation between how attractive a man's face is and the quality of his semen. I mean, wow, that is a stunning, direct link between what we see as good-looking and actual genetic fitness. So we've covered all the external signals that our eyes pick up, but what about the feeling of desire itself, the libido? For that, we have to look inside the brain. Seeing someone you find attractive isn't just a passive thing. It's not like just looking at a painting. It triggers a complex, lightning-fast chain of events inside your head. It's an evaluation, a split-second judgment, and a rush of brain chemicals all happening at once. So here's basically how it works. First, your eyes spot a good signal, a symmetrical face, a healthy BMI, whatever it is. Instantly, your brain's reward center, the nucleus accumbens, lights up. It gives you a little hit of pleasure, like a ding in your brain. Right after that, another part, the orbitofrontal cortex, acts like a judge, and it quickly assesses the value of this potential partner. It's like a super fast biological cost-benefit analysis. Okay, so your brain just made that snap judgment. How does that translate into a physical readiness for sex? This is the moment where attraction, arousal, and libido all come together.
Well, the body's response is incredibly direct. It's all business. As this quote from our source material explains pretty clearly, sexual arousal triggers a very specific physiological change, vaginal lubrication. And it has a very practical purpose: reduce friction and make intercourse possible.
And that right there is the final step in this whole biological chain reaction. It starts with your eyes seeing a visual cue for good genes. That signal gets processed by your brain as desirable, and it all ends with the body physically preparing itself for the act of reproduction. It's a remarkably efficient system.
Okay, so we've got all this deep biological programming. It sounds like we're just walking around on autopilot. But we also live in a world filled with magazines, movies, and trends that change every 5 minutes. So how much of this is pure instinct versus what our culture teaches us to like? The truth is, our ideals of beauty are always changing. I mean, just look at the prehistoric Venus figurines. They celebrated these really robust, full-figured bodies. Then you jump to ancient Greece, and it was all about mathematical proportions. And today, we're heavily influenced by global media. The underlying signals might be the same, but how we see them changes so much.
What's really cool is that there's even a debate about those ancient Venus figurines. For a long time, everyone assumed they were carved by men, a kind of male gaze focused on fertility. But some researchers now have a different theory. What if they were sculpted by women as self-portraits, from their own point of view, looking down at their own bodies? It's a powerful reminder that we're always reinterpreting the past.
So here's the big takeaway. It's not nature or nurture, it's nature and nurture. We all come with this built-in biological blueprint that tells our brain what to look for, those basic signals of health and fertility. But our culture and the time we live in, that's what writes in all the specific details.
And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. If that initial, powerful spark of attraction is so deeply wired into our biology, how much conscious choice do we really have in who we're drawn to? It really makes you think, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me.